if we had a measure where a list was placed where Kenyans who have done a lot for their country and received the least recognition, the person who would have gotten first on the list would have been Henry Pius Masinde Muliro. Henry Pius Masinde Muliro, apart from Muliro Gardens, both in Webuye and in Kakamega, plus the university, there is nothing that can be talked about this hero, who even went to Lancaster House for the Kenyan independence, and he was there during the second liberation. Talking about him, one would write a book, but I'm going to concentrate on his last days on earth. His last days on earth and how he met his death. First of all, let me start when multi-party started. He was in the original Ford, and then the Ford got divided into two. There was a Ford which was operating from Muliro House in Westlands, and there was Ford which was operating from Ajip House along Haile Selassie Road. Each one claims to be the original Ford. I am aware, from my professional point of view, that the government, through the intelligence, was busy dividing them. The government was dividing them. There is a team that would approach Muliro House informally and tell them to stick to their guns. There's another team which would approach the Ajip group and claim to stick to their guns. And it was very easy. Get some intelligence officers or government officials who are well placed, especially those with the tribes that are associated with that function. Say, unajua sisi tuko kwa serikali, tutakuja hapa kisirisiri because tukijulikana tutafutwa. So they would come and the intelligence we are gathering is that not only is yours legitimate, but yours is the most popular faction. So the intelligence is the one that really made them ilikuwa inawagonganisha. It even went to an extent that when the differences were so strong, irreconcilable differences, the Attorney General, Amos Sitswira Wako, even advised them to register as two different groups with a distinct name, but retaining the name Ford. You know, let me give you a rough estimate of some maths, although it is just for the purpose of debating. Supposing Ford in its original form had 60% and KANU had 40. So when you break them into two, each goes to 30-30, KANU takes over. So the first group to register themselves was the Ajip group. They went and said that they were Forum for the Restoration of Democracy in Kenya, Ford Kenya. After they were registered, that is when Matiba or the Muliro group rushed and registered their name as the original Ford. But instead of saying original Ford, they said Ford Asili. Those who understand Kiswahili would know. So that is what led them to split. But you will have noticed that although Henry Pius Masinde Muliro was in Ford Kenya, but he was really fighting to have the two functions back together. And Kenyans, when you are dead, they'll really praise you. But when you are alive, they'll call you all sort of names. A lot of them, especially people from Ford, the two functions of Ford, really gave him names. Opportunist. Later, Kalonzo Musyoka came with the kupitia katikati. So both groups were saying that he was coming up with a theory so that they come up with a compromise candidate who would be neither Wamalwa, no, who would neither be Jaramogi Odinga or Kenneth Matiba. So someone was trying to say that he was placing himself strategically as a compromise person. But as they rightly said about him when he was dead, it is true that he was a genuine reconciler. So as things were happening, George Luchiru Wajakoya was already abroad, and he rang Henry Pius Masinde Muliro and told him that he had some information which, if Henry Pius Masinde Muliro would know it, he would pass to the two functions, and the two functions, knowing the weight, the heaviness of the information, they would join together and become one and take over the government. Of course, for some reasons, Wajakoya never discloses that he was in the music room. I don't know why. But the information he got from music room by dubbing conversations by different people. But you see, a person of Henry Pius Masinde Muliro's stature, you cannot just call him, especially if you have a background in the intelligence, and tell him come, and he comes. So Henry Pius Masinde Muliro did his own background check on Wajakoya. But you see, those days we had landlines whereby they were being dubbed from music room. So the discussion between Wajakoya and Masinde Muliro were dubbed. And you know what intelligence used to do, special branch, is that once they mark you, for example, they saw that Wajakoya wanted to pass information, so they would sit down and try to see Wajakoya. And they would really look for a way of finding out anything and everything that Wajakoya may have come across. So if they know that Wajakoya may have come across ABCD, they say that whatever was in that region is already contaminated, so it cannot be this. But they were still not sure whether exactly what he had in mind. So they sent somebody, a man, a Kalenjin by tribe, to shadow him. The person booked the same plane with him, and he was given one instruction: make sure that whatever is being talked is not dangerous. But if it is dangerous, or if in case of any doubt, make sure that he does not come back alive. Masinde Muliro's meeting with Biwott at the airport was coincidental, and wonder of no wonders, again it was coincidental when they met, when they were coming back. So this Kale fellow tailed him, I cannot disclose his name, tailed him up to London, and when they reached London, Henry Pius Masinde Muliro was going to meet a group which used to be called FOF, Friends of Ford. Now Friends of Ford wanted to meet him, not only for contribution towards the second liberation, but also they wanted to meet him so as to know and show support for his efforts to unite the two Fords. So when Wajakoya and Masinde Muliro met, they met in such a way that even if you were near, you could not know. But this fellow, when he saw the gait, that the trot, the spring in Masinde Muliro's walk, he knew that whatever Masinde had been told would bring down the government. So he made sure that Masinde Muliro was not to die in Britain, and he was not to reach Kenya alive. Now, Britain, if he would have died within Britain, autopsies, you can remember there was somebody called Jason Kaviti. He used to be instructed to write somebody has died naturally. So there were no cavities there, and the whole truth would have been known. So along the plane, as they were coming back, this agent, the special branch agent, approached a air hostess and gave her some powder, which was to be mixed in Masinde Muliro's food or drink. You know, when you're in the airport, in the airplane, ask you what you want to eat. So whatever food you'll decide, there is somehow the powder will be placed there. So this powder was to activate a heart attack. And so minutes later, the heart attack came because of whatever he had taken. Some people said that Total Man, Pius, had an umbrella. No, umbrella is a system. You know, they were together. And around that time, or even before that, we had umbrella assassinations in Britain. You know, some people, some agents, KGB agents, who ran away from Moscow and went to stay in London, getting them was a problem. So they could bring another agent who pretended to be an old man, and I would tell, saidia kucross barabara, sijui. Once the person you're assisting, in the middle of the road, he would take that umbrella. You know, the British have that character of walking with umbrellas. So, because the umbrellas will assist you in the sun or even the rain. So when he's crossing, he would spike you with the tip of the umbrella, which had poison. And you being an intelligence officer, after you get that small pain, you know that your days are over. But before, when the heart attack comes, before you regain your consciousness or whatever, people rush you to the hospital. It has given this KGB man a chance to go back to the airport and fly back to Moscow. That is how the genesis of the umbrella was brought in. As we are approaching the end, there was concern that the family did not allow for the autopsy. I can only say two things in support of the family. First of all, it even costed the son political career. Kenya, we have so many people who are funeral prefects. They say, oh, this, and, but once you have buried your person, they disappear for good. Now, before Masinde Muliro died, his widow, who was a South African, a Zulu, had attended an autopsy of her, I think her own child, yeah. And you see, when they were opening up the child and whatever, that thing, she did not want to repeat the same with her husband. After all, she even said she's ready to conduct the postmortem if she can be guaranteed that the killer would be convicted. Why just go through there and then the same government hides the thing? That is why they did that. And that is the story about the last days of the greatest Kenyan who has had the least recognition. Msahulu Henry Pius Masinde Muliro.